How's it going, everybody? Johnny Talks Sports here to bring you my Week 2 college football predictions. Now, Week 1 was a good start for the year, 8-2 overall. Let's see if I can get 9 or 10. But as long as I get 7 or 8, I'm satisfied. 6 I'll be okay with, but then I'd strive to do better the next week. So let's see if we can get 8 again, or 9, or all 10. Let's see. Let's start off with number 17, Louisville versus North Carolina. Now, Louisville struggled throughout the game against Purdue. In fact, there were points in the game where they were down. But they came through in the end. But North Carolina, I feel like they're defeated right now after the Week 1 loss against California. So I'm going to pick Louisville. Even though they're going on the road again, I think they'll be able to much improve after the struggles in Week 1. I think they'll do much better, and I think Louisville gets the W. Pittsburgh versus number 4 Penn State. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up this game is because last year, Pittsburgh was one of Penn State's 2 losses. Many people think that if Penn State would have beaten Pittsburgh in Week 2 last year, they would have been in the college football playoff. And I think that can add some motivation to Penn State. And I think they get this win against Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh really struggled against Youngstown State last week. It took them into overtime. It took overtime to get it done, but they got it done. But I'm going to pick Penn State. I just think that offense of Penn State is just too lethal right now. It's one of the best in college football, but it's not the actual best. In fact, I think there's a couple more offenses that are better than Penn State's right now. But still, 10 returning starters on offense this year, including 2 Heisman hopefuls in Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley. Number 23, TCU versus Arkansas. Now, this is a good Big 12 and SEC matchup. But as much as I'm an SEC guy, I'm going to give this matchup to the Big 12. I just feel like TCU just has too much weaponry on offense. Even though they're going on the road in a hostile SEC environment, I think they're still going to get this. I think they're still going to get the W in this matchup. I just think the QB play has an advantage and the running game has an advantage over Arkansas. I know the Big 12 isn't the best defensive conference, but I think they'll do just enough. Nebraska versus Oregon. Now, even though Nebraska beat Oregon last year in Lincoln, this year they go on the road to Eugene, Oregon. Head coach Mike Riley knows the Ducks well. I personally think that Mike Riley was brought into Nebraska for the sole purpose of beating Oregon for these 2 games. However, I think that Nebraska's 3-4 defense they've been trying to demonstrate this year under new defensive coordinator Bob Diaco. I think it's honestly going to be a huge mistake down the road, and it's going to start right here. I think this 3-4 defense won't have the ability to stop Oregon's fast tempo offense, especially when they almost threw the game away against Arkansas State, only winning by a total of 7 points, not covering that spread last week. I think Nebraska has several troubles in this game, including not being able to keep up with Oregon, because there's a lot of inexperience on Nebraska's offense this year, and Oregon's bringing back some great QB play, great running back play. I think Oregon goes back to where things were, especially with new head coach Willie Taggart, who worked really well with QB Quentin Flowers over at South Florida. I think Oregon gets the win. I think it's going to be a huge margin of victory. But whatever the spread is for Oregon being a favorite, pick them to cover the spread, because that 3-4 defense is not going to be able to stop Oregon for a full 60 minutes. Number 13, Auburn versus number 3, Clemson. Now we're getting into the good games. I know there's a couple, not the best games that before we talk about the big game of the week. But now let's talk about Utah and BYU first, and then Boise State, number 20, Washington State. BYU, I thought they're probably gassed after the 17-0 shutout against LSU last week. And Utah's bringing back some strong offensive weapons. I think Utah gets the victory here. Because BYU just hasn't looked well in the 2 games they've played against Portland State on August 26th and LSU last week. They just didn't look like a strong team at that point. I think Utah takes advantage of this. I think Utah wins by at least double digits. Boise State number 20, Washington State. Now, I haven't seen Boise State so far yet this year. Yeah, I believe, unless they had like a bye week, week 1, a couple teams have a bye week, week 1, but I'm not sure on schedules. Because Boise State's a group of 5, so I'm unfamiliar with group of 5 teams. But historically, Boise State's been really well. And I think this is a great matchup because I think this is really going to test out how good Washington State really is, because Washington State beat an FCS school last week. And Boise State is a really good group of 5 team, maybe the 3rd or 4th best group of 5 team there is. But I think Washington State's offense will be too much for Boise State in the second half of the game. I think if Washington State's defense could come up huge early, I think it's going to be a long night for the Boise State Broncos. But I think Washington gets that W. And now let's get into the good games this week. Number 13, Auburn versus number 3, Clemson. Now this was a low-scoring game last year when Clemson had Deshaun Watson at quarterback. This year, they do not. It's Kelly Bryant at quarterback, the junior. And Auburn's got a new quarterback, the Baylor transfer, and Jarrett Stidham. And I think this is going to be a really close game from start to finish. I mean, we had a score of 19-13 last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had a low-scoring game again this year. In fact, I believe that we are going to have a low-scoring game in this one as well. I think this game's going to be won in the the trenches toward the end of the game, defensive battle towards the end. But I want to give the edge of this matchup to the Clemson defensive line. In this matchup, I think Clemson picks up a really close 24-20 victory. I could see it being Clemson stopping a game-winning touchdown drive in the last minute of the game. Clemson dodges a bullet in this one because it's going to be close. Number 15, Georgia versus number 24, Notre Dame. Now, Jacob Eason, the Georgia quarterback, is out for this game. In fact, he's week to week. But they have a solid backup quarterback in Jake Fromm. And they still got a great running game. Notre Dame, they had a good week against Temple. That was a good game to get their feet wet a bit. And they get to host Georgia this week. But I am going to favor Georgia in this matchup. I just feel like that running game for Georgia will be too much for Notre Dame. Because I like Georgia to pick up that W. As far as the score, I think it's going to be 31-24 or 31-21. Somewhere in that range. Number 14, Stanford versus number 6, USC. This is going to be a great matchup as well. Great Pac-12 battle. Stanford seems to have USC's number over the last several years. And USC really struggled a lot throughout the game against Western Michigan. Couldn't really pull it out until toward the end of the fourth quarter. And I feel like Stanford is going to have some momentum going in this matchup, despite going on the road in a hostile environment in Southern California. I think Stanford is going to win this game. I feel like David Shaw is going to have his defense ready to force Sam Darnold to making mistakes in this game. I think it's going to be really close. I think we're going to see a high-scoring game. I think we're going to get a 37-34 victory for the Stanford Cardinal. And finally, the game of the week. Number 5 Oklahoma versus number 2 Ohio State. Now, is that going to be a fun game to watch? Now, as far as for those of you that joined my live stream for Alabama, Florida State last week, I'm not sure what game to live stream this week. I mean, there's a lot of good ones out there. Auburn, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame, Stanford, USC. This one, Oklahoma and Ohio State. I decided it's going to come down to a vote. Comment the game you want us to have a live stream on. The little Watch with Johnny Talk Sports. which game would you like me to do a live stream for? Or do you want to just do kind of a flip around? Like kind of flip through all those games? I'll let you decide in the comment section. But as far as this game goes, I feel like Oklahoma just needs this to be an offensive battle. The defense will have to step up at some point in the game. But I have to give the edge to Ohio State in this matchup. Coaching-wise, Urban Meyer's going to have these guys ready for this game. Because Ohio State struggled in the first half against Indiana. But in the second half, they just came out rolling. So I'm picking Ohio State to win this game. I just feel like Oklahoma doesn't have the experience with coaching, and they still have Baker Mayfield, a Heisman hopeful. But they need to replace a lot of. They need to replace like running backs and wide receivers. But as far as that is concerned, I think Ohio State wins this game by double digits because I just feel like this is not going to favor Oklahoma at all. I feel like they probably needed this game at around like week 4. I just feel like being in week 2, it's not going to favor the Sooners that well. I think Ohio State wins this game. I think it's going to be 45-24. Something similar to last year. Anyway, those are my week 2 picks. Comment your picks down below. Like and subscribe to the channel. We've gained a lot of subscribers in the last week, and it really means a lot. We're getting close to 900, which I feel like it's a real accomplishment here. Again, comment your vote for which game you want to have live streamed, or if you want to just kind of flip around through all the games, see what's going on at the time of those games. Anyway, I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day, everybody.